Boba Fett? Where? It's a positive film. It has heroes and villains, and that it essentially is a fun movie to watch. It's been a long time since people have been able to go to the movies and see a sort of straightforward, wholesome, fun adventure.
Well, it's a fantasy. It's not science fiction so much as it is space fantasy. And it's about people. It's finally about people and not finally about science.
The story, when you actually put it into words, is only so much nonsense to hang a great visual experience onto. It's the stuff that fairy tales are made of.
Sort of boiling down religion into a very basic concept. The fact that there is some deity or some power or some force that sort of controls our destiny works for good and also works for evil.
Marvelous, healthy innocence. Great pace, wonderful to look at, full of guts, nothing unpleasant. I mean, people go bang bang and people fall over and are dead, but, no horrors. A sort of wonderful freshness about it, kind of like a wonderful fresh air.
It's got whatever you want it to be. It's pure entertainment. It's like a roller coaster ride, and it can be interpreted as long as you enjoy it, which is the intention of it.
Hello and welcome back to Generation Skywalker. This is Dan and you're listening to episode 30 of Those Old Fossils and part 7 of the Bounty Hunter Capture Pod, and the final part in this series and the last Those Old Fossils of 2025. Over the last 6 episodes we've been looking at the vintage Star Wars action figures of the 6 bounty hunters assembled on Darth Vader's Star Destroyer in The Empire Strikes Back. In the first 4 shows we covered Boss, Dengar, IG-88, Forlom and Zuckuss, and in parts 5 and 6 we looked at Boba Fett. In part 5 Jez interviewed Brian Rockfell and Chris Dragoulias on the evolution of the prototype rocket firing Fett, and in the previous episode myself, Jez, Pete along with Mark from Variant Villains covered the production version of the figure. So if you haven't listened to those already, go back and give them a listen. But in this episode we're concluding our discussion on Fett and looking at the large size action figure, Slave One, and at some of the Beyond the Toys items, as well as wrapping up this series. And joining me tonight, as always, I've got Peter Lee.
Good evening, Dan. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. I am good. So, Pete, you've been mentioning that you want to try and get some of these bounty hunters carded. Who are you going after first?
Oh, Forlom on that Palitoy card. I know we talked about it. I think everyone's after one of those. Jez was looking after one of those, yeah. But I think that seems to be a gettable one. A couple of farthest from, which I missed on. But so that's probably an easy one to go for. But then, yeah, and then the other end of the scale, yeah, a Fett on a Palitoy card would be nice. But yeah,
that's the dream.
That is the dream. Anyone with a Palitoy logo would be nice, wouldn't it? 30B obviously would be the absolute peach.
Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. I need it.
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
And Mr. Jez Allinson, how you doing, Jez?
Good evening. How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm good. Now, Jez, you probably thought you got away with it, but you haven't. So come on, how are you going to knock out Fett? What's the killer blow on Fett? You've let's have a little run through actually. So, Bosk, you shot Bosk.
Yeah.
You punched Dengar.
Right.
You ran away from IG-88.
Yeah.
You made friends with Zuckuss.
Yeah.
And you played practical jokes on Forlom.
Okay.
So come on, man. You're going to get some military hardware with Fett. He's got rocket packs. He's got all sorts going on, knee darts. He's coming after you. How are you gonna tackle him?
Yeah, that's true. So I wasn't not really prepared for this. All right, so his ship, Slave One. I think we all know those people who like outdo someone. You know, that whole thing where, oh yeah, I've had one crap, or that person's had 2 craps. I'm probably going to rock up in Slave 2, and already, it's going to be a slightly better ship than his. And I think what I'll try and do is I'll take him out of some seismic charges. I think that will definitely have him. His entire arsenal, I'm just going to do it better with a drone. So yeah, I'm just gonna beat this guy with tech.
Nice.
But not tech from, Bad Batch, but, tech.
Not
Very
a bad
good.
answer for being unprepared.
Yeah.
I was just rapidly thinking, quick, just cuff it.
Do you know what I'd do? I'd get a big stick and just whack his backpack. It seems to do the job.
yeah. Or you could just distract him with like a Twi'lek, or just because he did seem to be easily distracted in Jabba's palace.
We'll get Stu dressed up as Ula, and that'll do the job, wouldn't it? I reckon.
Well, it's going to do one or two things, I guess, really. But maybe time to move on.
Yeah. So before we get into Fett proper, the three of us had a little day out a couple of weeks ago. We headed down to Sandown Toy Fair for a little get together. I don't think we've really spoken about Sandown before. I know you've mentioned it a few times, Pete, on the show. But for anyone who's not been before, what can you tell our listeners about the Sandown Toy Show, Pete?
It's huge. It's a Harry Potter show. So check out the website. They're all on there. They do 4 a year, which is really good. It comes around really quick. And I'm pretty close. I'm about half an hour away. It's down in Sandown and the racecourse. And they open the doors at 8. And the dealers are allowed in at 8 as well. So when you first get in there, if you get in early bird, you wander around with loads of moody looking dealers because they've got everyone delving into their boxes at the same time they're trying to set up their stands, which is quite fun. Everyone's digging around. There's lots going on, but it's incredible. I can't, off the top of my head, I think it's about 500 to 600 stores, maybe more. It's that sort of level, and it just goes on and on and on. Real mix. You've got sort of toy trains, dinkies, die cast, but more and more popular culture and lots of Star Wars. You've got a few dealers who regularly go along, but you also get a few people who just come along and are selling up collections or sort of house clearances and that. So it's well worth keeping an eye on, especially if you're local and you get there easy. But it's worth a mooch around. All the auction houses are there. Vectis is there, C&T, Oberon, so you see what's coming up there. That's almost worth the entry fee alone. I've always got some nice Star Wars bits coming along. It's good. See your mates, grab a few overpriced coffees, and talk nonsense with your pals, basically.
Yeah, I was surprised. I haven't been for a few years, Pete, because I've never been a regular, but I've gone over the years every now and then when it's worked out that I can be there. But yeah, I was really surprised how much vintage Star Wars there was there this time. When I went before, I think I saw a Rancor the last time I was there. That was probably like 5 years ago, but there was a hell of a lot of vintage there compared to previous.
Yeah, it's really changed over the last sort of 10 years. I remember because I used to go in the 90s when there was loads, those sort of legendary fairs when you'd have sort of Jim Stevenson would have his sort of however long, 10-metre long table, and you'd just basically just be staring at it for just incredible stuff, incredible condition. But yeah, you've got a lot more, you've got dealers there, but you've obviously got the sort of people who are just setting up. I think it's sort of our generation where you realise you can just pay 60 quid and have a table and share it with your mates and sell some bits. So.
Yeah, there was a lot of He-Man, Transformers, all that stuff. It was great just seeing some of that stuff. Not necessarily wanting to buy it, but I could have spent much longer in there.
And just to see the punters as well. I know it seems to be so much talk about there's no younger generation coming through collecting this stuff, but there are a lot of young people there buying stuff in their sort of 20s and 30s and sometimes even younger. You've got kids sort of picking up bits. So it's good. I like it. It's a great fair.
Yeah. That was good. It was good, but we was all picking stuff up. I know, Pete, you were picked up a couple of pieces from I think it was from Vectis, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's nice because obviously they have regular auctions, so it's nice to know that anything you pick up can just be sort of hand delivered. It's still got to come down in a van, but I'd probably trust it more in the Vectis van than in postal Royal Mail.
Yeah,
been thrown around parcel force for a week and then finally making it here. So that's nice peace of mind to have it. And all the auction houses will do that if you win pieces to get it hand delivered. So yeah, no, I picked up a really nice 30 back Luke Besbin and a 30 back Rebel Soldier, which very happy with those. I've been sort of wanting to get a 30 back into my collection for a long time. So to get two in one day was quite a score.
You never had a 30 back? I can't believe it.
I know, it's embarrassing, right? Yeah, I never had one.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, I had a similar experience. So I was picking up as well. So I had a C&T win. I got the 45A Vader, which I'm absolutely chuffed with. Can't stop smiling every time I look at it. And a 45A Dengar. That's my second Palatoy Dengar this year. I've done well. I've got one to sell now. So yeah, but getting that 45A in was pretty sweet. And Jay, you weren't picking up, you were buying. You bought yourself something while you were there.
You guys did well. I must say, both of you, what you were picking up, these were class bits. Dan, it was hilarious when you were buying that Vader. Let's just talk about that night initially, though, just for a second. That Vader was a timed auction, wasn't it? Because it was around about sort of 6:30 p.m. because I was out socializing. I was having drinks, cocktails with my wife. Peter, you were out, weren't you, as well?
Yeah.
We were all out. We were all like, Dan, how's it going? How's it going? Yeah, we were all like willing you on and sort of sending each other photographs of like us all like holding our fingers crossed and stuff. You could win that Vader, which you did, and you were delighted with it. So
Well, I saw it at it was Echo. C&T had it there, and I was like Wayne in Wayne's World, it will be mine. Oh yes. Yeah, I kind of worked out in my head how much I could spend, and when I think it had been an hour before it ended, I just went in and went bam, that's my lot, and then walked away, and then like cautiously looking at my phone every 10 minutes to see if the auction had ended, and it'd go for another 100 and another 100 and another 100, and you guys were messaging me, and I was like, just end, because it extends it's not like eBay auction where it just ends at a given time. Every time someone bids within 10 minutes of the auction ended, it just extends it for 10 minutes. So it went on for like 45 minutes it was pushing out for.
Do you think of that format? Because I mean, obviously for you buying it at that time, you must have been thinking, but I think that's quite a clever format. I know that they've done that in Australia. We saw that with the Toll Toys sale of that large find, which was in New Zealand. I think it's quite good. You know, no one can snipe it at the end, can they? And I think from a seller point of view, the seller does pretty well out of that.
Yeah, I think so. It's certainly done well out of me. Yeah, no, I think it's a great format if you're selling. I think it's a fair way. I mean, I just think I was buying something the other night and someone just comes in and just puts a massive bid on something right at the end and just blows everyone out of the water. You just got no chance of coming back. 2 seconds before the end, it's game over.
Yeah, but it allows you that time to think, right, okay, I'm out now. I've just been beaten. I got 10 minutes to have a little think about it though. How badly do I want it? And there's none of this like, oh, quick, let's do that, and then instantly regret it maybe or what have you. You have that time to think, oh, well, actually, if I did sell this or if I did sell that. And I think for both sellers, I quite like that format. Yeah.
No, all's well that ends well. But even if I know what I paid for it, people might look up the auction and go, Jesus, and I'm really happy with it. It ticks so many boxes for me in terms of what I collect. It's even if I sold it for a loss, I'd still be happy with it. What I paid, I've got it in my collection, and I'm chuffed to bits with it. So yeah,
it's a Vader, it's mint on card, it's Palatoy, and it's Empire Strikes Back. It's
exactly
almost all of your boxes.
Yeah,
right? It looks awesome, and it's not only that, is a really hard to find one. It's highly sort of treasured. You've done well, and Peter, with your 30-pack Luke Bespin, so that's the walk-in Luke Bespin, which just looks so cool. It's one of the coolest card backs. Yeah, to see you guys collect those and see your little cheery faces, it was really, really good.
Come on then, mate. What did you get yourself? Because I thought you were going to walk away with a large-sized Boba Fett at one point.
Well, at one stage, let's not talk about that then. So, damn this podcast with its influence on our purchasing. Yeah, I have started to think, I want to get myself a large-size action figure Boba Fett, and I wondered if there would be one there. I was wandering around, and funny odd thing, just behind a stall, which I think it was the only Star Wars thing the guy had. So, you could have easily just walked past it and not noticed because, it's so busy now. People are scan looking at tables, aren't they? When they do their sort of first rapid drive-throughs of these places, they're like, no Star Wars, let's go. And it was right on the back, and it was on a shelf, and it was a Star Wars, so not the Empire Strikes Back one, but Star Wars boxed Fett. I'm like, oh, let's have a little look at that. Yeah, he brought it over. His asking price was high. I knew it wasn't going to sell just like that, and the fact that people would have just walked straight past it, I'm sure, because it really had blended into the background. And then, I was consulting with you about it, and you're like, nah, it needs to be much cheaper than that. It wasn't in the best of conditions, the box, but it's just all part of that, me accruing information and accruing knowledge. So I looked at it and walked on, and that was it. I did a few sort of sweeps, but I kept on going back to one stall, because what I do like about Sandown is territorial is not the right sense. I mean, Peter, I'm sure you'll come up with a better term, but where people are going to be. People tend to, maybe territorial is the right thing, but Oberon are always where Oberon are. C&T are always where they are, in Vectors, and you get the same sellers and same traders. It's almost like they must contact the Barry Potter Fair and say, yep, same time, same place type thing. I don't know. But there's occasionally a few other traders, and there was a trader who I hadn't seen before, and he had a load of Palatoy 12 backs, mint on card figures, but they weren't mint bubbles. In fact, I hadn't seen them like this before. The top quarter of the bubbles were all cut away. So they weren't carefully sliced. These were, it's like someone had wound the window down on these bubbles, and you could remove the figures. But it was a 12B Star Wars Luke Skywalker that I saw. I mean, he had a Vader, he had all sorts of stuff there, Stormtrooper, very R2D2, and I kept on being drawn to it. And that's probably because recently, you know, I've got a couple more Luke Skywalker original bits and pieces, and I kept on being drawn to it. And I ended up going back to his stand and just thinking, no, that's too much. No, not quite sure. But John was there, who people might know as Wendy Williams on Facebook. But our friend John Aves was there, and a huge Palatoy collector. And he was, you know, oh, yeah, let's have a little look at this. Let's have a little look at that. I very much appreciated his thoughts and his experience. And we did a little bit of haggling. We were doing a little bit of negotiating with this guy and bringing him right down. And I was still thinking, well, it's not quite as low as I want it to be. And then I tried a new tactic. I'm going to tell you, fellas, I don't mind sharing this new tactic with you. It just came to me. The guy gave me his rock bottom price.
You know.
50,000, no less.
And I said, let me think about it. And then I went away. I came back about 10 minutes later and I said, right, mate, where are you based? Where are you based? Just in case I change my mind. And I don't know, maybe you live near me. I'm not sure. Whereabouts are you based? You know, giving this guy the impression that I was I was leaving. That was it. I'm going home. Just in case, let me know where you're based. And he was like, oh, no, come on, let's do a deal.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
So he then was able to get it down as low as I wanted, because let's face it, it was right towards the end of the day.
Yeah.
And he was either going to take it home or he was going to really, really get haggled down.
Jabba offers a sum of 35, and I do suggest you take it. He agrees.
So I was really, really pleased with this. I've got it away. I've had a bit of a rejig in my collection. And so now I didn't see this coming. I certainly didn't have it about a month ago, but I've got a mini Luke Skywalker focus going on in the middle of my middle cabinet. But yeah, I would never be able to afford a mint on card one. So this is a great sort of place filler for me. Yeah, I appreciate it. John's thoughts, and really, really pleased with that.
Ah, well done, mate. No, it's classy, isn't it? It's the rookie card when it comes to Palatoy, and it's the one everyone wants. I thought, well, what's one of those mint on card? What, $3-4 grand?
Yeah, I've seen in some cases like up to $6,000.
Yeah. High grade one, you look at that.
Yeah, and it's just a case of, you know, I'm looking at it, and huge Palatoy logo stands out. The Luke image is iconic. Yeah, there's a little bit of damage where the bubble was sort of broken and a little bit of ripping, but actually, you know, for 10% of the value, you know, I got a good price, and and I'm really, really pleased with it.
Congratulations, mate. That's to go look brilliant next to your double telescoping that you've recently invested in as well.
I know what's happened. I know, it's good stuff.
You have to get a Luke 12-inch doll as well to go with your Boba Fett when you get home.
That's a really good idea.
And so you can have your Boba Fett next to your Luke, and then your Luke next to your Palatoy, and your Luke Ace.
I love all these podcasts.
Very good. So yeah, it was a great show. I've not been for a while, like I say, but it was probably the best one I've been to down there for a long time. I used to go there when Jim was there as well, but obviously when he passed and his stall's no longer there, there's been a bit of a vacuum. But it looks like other sellers are filling the void now. But yeah, no, if anyone else has the opportunity to go down there, for the next one's in February, isn't it? Looks like a little schedule. Yeah.
They do. What do they do? February, May, September, November, I think usually.
Yeah,
but, as I say, website's good. It's all on there. So.
Yeah, great little meet-up spot for us. So yeah, definitely do another one of those.
Boba Fett, Star Wars villain with his laser rifle.
Baby, let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about
Boba Fett.
Bounty Hunter. Let's talk about
Boba Fett.
Let's talk about Bobas. Let's talk about
Boba Fett.
Let's talk about
The best bounty hunter in the galaxy.
Boba Fett's behind-the-scenes story is just as fascinating as the on-screen myth of the character. The design, the unusual first appearances, and the actors who gave him life. Boba Fett began as an idea for a super trooper. George Lucas wanted an advanced type of stormtrooper, and concept artists Ralph McQuarrie and Joe Johnston developed a sleek white armoured version. When that idea was scaled back, the armour was repurposed into something far more compelling. The lone mercenary with dented, weathered gear, the chipped green helmet, the rangefinder, the jetpack. Suddenly Boba looked like a survivor, a character with history written right into the costume. His first public appearance wasn't even in a movie. In 1978, a costumed Fett walked in the San Anselmo Country Fair Parade in California, literally striding down Main Street before audiences ever saw him on screen. Just months later, he turned up in the animated short within the Star Wars Holiday Special. There, voiced by Canadian actor Don Franks, who would later go on to voice Boba Fett again in the Droids animated series in the mid-80s. Boba made his debut as a mysterious, smooth-talking warrior. That mix of cartoon, parade and mystery created a buzz that primed fans for his big screen debut. By the time The Empire Strikes Back hit theatres in 1980, Boba Fett was already a legend in the making. Several performers combined to shape him. Jeremy Bulloch, the man inside the armour, gave Fett his body language. The stillness, the deliberate helmet tilt, the sense that every movement had purpose. Jason Wingreen, an American actor, recorded Fett's original lines, short, sharp and menacing. When the films were updated years later, Tamura Morrison, who played Jango Fett in the prequels, revoiced those lines and later returned to physically portray Boba in The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett, giving the character his face, his heritage and a new emotional weight. Other actors also left their mark. Daniel Logan played young Boba in Attack of the Clones, showing us the vulnerable boy left fatherless on Geonosis. He later voiced the character in the Clone Wars, portraying the grief-stricken orphan hardening into the man we'd come to know. Logan also carried the torch at conventions, bringing youthful energy to the role and keeping Boba alive for a new generation of fans. In 1997, Boba Fett was even stitched retroactively into A New Hope for the special edition. That quick shot of him standing beside the Millennium Falcon was performed by Mark Austin, an ILM animator who briefly donned the armour for the reshoot. So when we ask who is Boba Fett, the answer is a collaboration. McQuarrie and Johnson gave him the look, Franks gave him his very first voice, Bulloch gave him the movement, Wingreen and Morrison gave him menace and lineage. Logan gave him his origin, and Austin tied him back into the saga's beginning. But when fans think of Boba Fett, one name always arises first: Jeremy Bulloch. Jeremy didn't just wear the armour, he carried the fandom on his shoulders. At conventions around the world, he was patient, generous, and endlessly kind. Collectors loved him because he never treated an autograph like a transaction. He treated it like a moment. He listened, he laughed, and he made fans feel like they mattered. Meeting him was often the highlight of someone's Star Wars journey. Jeremy Bulloch sadly passed away in 2020, and the grief was wet with him an outpouring of gratitude. Fans remembered not only the cool bounty hunter on screen, but the warm gentleman behind the mask. He turned a few minutes of screen time into a lifelong legend through grace, humility, and love for the community. So when we celebrate Boba Fett, we celebrate all the voices, all the faces that shaped him, but most of all, we remember Jeremy, proof that sometimes the most intimidating mask in the galaxy hides the kindest heart.
But it's incredible. The character he's fun. He's not nasty. He's he's tricky.
He's a fabulous character. You've been to numerous celebrations in the past. You mentioned that the only one that you haven't been to is the very first one. What's your favorite memory from celebrations past?
Well, I think the best thing ever is when people came up to me and they said, "Excuse me, Mr. Bulloch." I said, "Yes." He said, "You're Boba Fett, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, you're absolutely right."
Did you ever get to meet Jeremy Bulloch in your time?
I saw him at a convention right at the very beginning when I didn't feel confident enough to actually engage him in conversation. And, I think he was really, really busy with it was pre-Phantom Tracks with some of the Jedi News guys. So I do have an autograph of his, but it wasn't done for me. It was just, one of the many autograph things that he had. But by all accounts, everyone who I have spoken to just has fallen over themselves about what a wonderful guy he was. and how actually if I had have had the sort of confidence to talk to him and whatnot, he would have just been a lovely, really warm gentleman. Shame that I missed out on that opportunity, really.
About you, Pete?
Yeah, no, sadly not. But yeah, like you say, Jez, everything I've read, it just sounds like quite a legend and tons of time for all the fans and very giving with his times. I think I would have probably seen him from a distance at those sort of Chesant shows back in the day, but no, sadly no interactions. But yeah, missed opportunity.
So I met him a couple of times. The first time was right back at the beginning when I started going to shows and getting autographs, which is like back in 2000, so just after Phantom Menace came out. But I think I met him in 2001. I got his and David Prowse's autographs at the same time. They were sitting next to each other. I think it was might be right. I think it was at NEC. Is it when they used to do the memorabilia event? So I met him then, but again, I was very much like you, Jez, a bit shy and kind of like just kind of pushed my photo in front of him, got him to sign it and walk away. But the second time was in 2013. I think it was the Jedi News. They weren't found for tracks yet. They were doing their Caravan of the Force, and they were doing kind of a bit of a road trip with Jeremy over to Essen for the celebration that year. But on the way there, they stopped off at the Toys R Us in Brent Cross, or Brentwood as Stuart calls it, and they did the launch of the Black Series there. So you could go to, I think it was on like a Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and they were passing through there. You could go in there and you could buy the first wave of Black Series before anyone else. They had little stickers on them saying first day of issues, and you could get an autograph with Jeremy. I had Harrison with me. He was still in a pushchair then. I think he was about 2 or 3 years old, and he was in full Boba Fett costume, which was superb. So you just walked up. And they had the proof cards from the back of the Black Series box. They were proof, but they had like the kind of a bit of a dynamic drawing in black and white, and then a bit of text about the character. They had the actual kind of printed card backs of that Hasbro had produced, and he was autographing those. And he signed one. I got him to sign it for Harrison, as it happens, and I've got that in a drawer for him somewhere when he's a little bit older. But yeah, we had a nice chat to him then. Fantastic guy. The fact that he was in costume, you try to get some of these actors back into their costumes to sign autographs. I don't think they'd play ball very much, but yeah, he was loving it, and it was great to see him that time. But yeah, sadly, that was the last time I got to meet him. Yeah, lovely bloke, lovely bloke.
It is quite incredible for so few lines that it's become so popular, and mainly that's down to the costume. The Boba Fett outfit is the coolest suit ever.
How did you get to wear it, Jeremy? What was the thing that got you the part?
Well, the interview was really getting dressed in the outfit, and I put the suit on, size 10 shoes, perfect fit. I have size 10 shoes. 6 foot tall, I'm 6 foot tall. If I hadn't fitted the suit, that would have been it.
I think the other thing that surprised me, just going through some of what Stu just covered there, was the actor that did the voice in the holiday special. He also did the voice for Boba Fett in the Droids cartoon as well. He came back for that like 7 or 8 years later. I thought it would be a different actor, but I looked it up the other day. It's the same guy. So yeah, he must have been well up for Boba Fett. You'd never have thought that, would you?
Biding his time.
No one escapes me. I have someone on the job. Just remember.
Boba Fett.
After this, we are settled, size from. After this, I owe you nothing.
I did have a beer or two with Grant and Danny Logan in a bar in Essen when he was just in there alone, not swamped by anyone. And then we just rock up and Grant's like, see that guy? That is young Boba Fett grown up. And I'm like, what? So, and no one else had sort of twigged. Yeah, we got pretty hammered that night. And
with Daniel?
Yeah. I've got photographs and everything. It was great. And he was just like, Jez, man, your Grant's crazy. And it was it was just one of those hilarious times in Germany. I'm sure it was Germany. I don't want to sound crass. I think it was Germany. Yeah, it wasn't America. It was Germany. It was
really was a good night. I can't even remember what country you were in.
Yeah, it was good.
Move the ship out of the asteroid field so that we can send a clear transmission.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, this is Ron Salvatore of the Star Wars Collector's Archive. I'm here to talk to you about what I consider the best Star Wars product developed by Kenner during the vintage era. No, not the most popular, or even the most famous. I'm talking the best, from a quality perspective, meaning, I guess, the coolest toy. What product am I talking about? It is, drumroll, the Rebel Transport. That's right, the Rebel Transport. Not only was it shaped like a pickle, it smelled like one too. Of course I'm kidding. The Rebel Transport sucked. Like, if the scooter scene from the Book of Boba Fett was a toy, it'd be the Rebel Transport. No, what I'm really here to talk about is the large-size action figure representing Boba Fett. Everyone knows the story of the small version of Boba Fett, how it was Kenner's first individual mail-away figure, how it was planned to include a rocket-firing feature, and so on. But to my mind, the large version of the character has an equally intriguing story, one that's rarely discussed, and which includes its own tale of great plans only partially realized. But first, I suppose we need to discuss the large-size line in a general sense. The line launched in 1978 with 4 figures, released in 2 different formats. There was a 12-inch format comprising Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, each actually just under 12 inches in height, and a 15-inch format comprising Darth Vader and Chewbacca. The 2 droids, R2-D2 and C-3PO, were added for the Christmas season as JCPenney exclusives. Han Solo and the Stormtrooper followed in early 1979. Of course, the line expanded, and by 1980 it comprised 12 figures. That's when the final figure, IG-88, joined the party. After that, well, nothing happened. Kenner canceled the line in early 1980, consigning several developed figures, including a very cool representation of Lando Calrissian, to the graveyard of unreleased toys. Why did they do this? Well, the line of small figures was a big success. They were inexpensive to produce, and Kenner's margins on them were surely huge. What's more, the line supported an entire range of accessories, and those represented millions in additional sales. In order to fully utilize the figures, you needed the spaceships and playsets, maybe even a carrying case. In short, the 3 3/4 inch line constituted a whole product ecosystem. The large figures, on the other hand, were costly to produce. More importantly, Kenner never established a means of accessorizing them. Though they contemplated selling a range of alternative outfits, the concept was never realized. And, generally speaking, the figures were too large to be supported by vehicles and playsets. So in 1980, the line of large-size figures came to an end. Frankly, I'm not sure they were missed by most children. After all, kids had the small figures to focus on. But to my way of thinking, the large line was memorable. It included all the major characters, and the figures were nicely sculpted and outfitted. Okay, maybe the Jawa was a little lackluster, but overall they were very cool. One thing that set the line apart was its sheer 1970s-ness. Kenner, remember, popularized the 3 3/4 inch format for action figures. Prior to that, most figures hewed to the 12-inch or 8-inch standards. Shoot, Kenner's big licensing success prior to Star Wars was the $6 Million Man, a figure created in the 12-inch format. By the way, if you're a fan of Colonel Steve Austin, just hold on. More on him in a bit. So by launching their Star Wars line with a range of 12-inch figures, Kenner was playing it safe and acknowledging that their bet on a smaller format was somewhat risky. But once the small figures proved themselves, and did they ever, it was so long large figures. Regardless, we have the existing large figures to remind us what could have been, and what was, and to remind us that Star Wars started out as a 1970s phenomenon. In fact, that 70s flavor is part of what I love about the early Kenner product. I mean, in 1978 they released Star Wars vans with funky graphics on their sides. The Kenner of the 80s would never even have considered such a thing. Okay, back to Boba Fett. The large Boba Fett was released in 1979. While I don't know the exact month of its release, it was definitely available for the holidays. Standing 13 inches tall, the figure differed from its counterparts in that it featured a greater range of articulation. Kenner built swivel joints into its elbows and shoulders to allow a realistic range of movement akin to Hasbro's G.I. Joe. The knees were articulated as well. The figure was also heavily accessorized. Here's the full list of goodies that came with the large-size Boba Fett. A cloth cape, a laser rifle, a removable jetpack with movable jets, a grappling hook that threaded through the backpack and allowed Boba Fett to zip line over obstacles, a rubber utility belt, and of course everyone's favorite, Wookiee scalps, which were really just fiber braids with some beads on them. On top of that, the figure included a movable rangefinder that kids could use in combination with a see-through viewport. The latter was built into the figure's head. It allowed users to peer through it and thereby line up imaginary targets. If the viewport feature sounds familiar, it's because it was recycled from Kenner's $6 Million Man figure. Hey, it worked once, why not try it again? I told you we'd return to Steve Austin. To ensure kids realized how special this degree of accessorization was, Kenner included in the package of the large-size Boba Fett a flyer detailing all of the hardware the figure was packing. Double-sided, it was adorned with swirling montage illustrations, and featured sayings like, "Boba Fett has many features to recreate the fun and excitement of the movie." It's almost a collectible in its own right, one of the cooler pieces of toy paperwork of the vintage era. Naturally, all this coolness came with a cost. Internal Kenner documents reveal that the wholesale price of Boba Fett was a full $2 above that of the other figures in the line, $8.90 versus $6.90 for the more mundane figures. Earlier, I teased canceled features. I know you didn't forget that. Everyone loves canceled features. But in order to address that, we need to get into the toy's development. The earliest piece relating to the development of the large-size Boba Fett, that I'm aware of at any rate, is a conceptual illustration. Showing the figure at around actual size, it depicts Boba Fett in a manner closely approximating the early design drawings of Joe Johnston. At that time, Boba Fett was still being conceptualized as something akin to a super stormtrooper, with armor that was appropriately white in color. This Kenner conceptual art, done merely a month after Johnston's design drawings, reflects its model right down to Boba Fett's pose, showing the character's left arm partially extended. No, the Kenner art leaves no doubt that it was based on the Johnston drawings, and it tells us that, just as Lucasfilm began working on the Boba Fett character, Kenner did too. If you're interested, 3 other conceptual drawings of large-size figures surfaced with this Boba Fett example. They are C-3PO, Han Solo, and Darth Vader. Some of them were signed by Kenner design guru Jim Swearingen. You can see all of them on the Star Wars Collector's Archive. The next earliest piece I'm aware of relating to the large Boba Fett is a photograph of the conceptual model. Such models were built to demonstrate the idea of a toy in 3 dimensions. I specify that I'm talking about a photograph as, alas, the actual Boba Fett model hasn't surfaced. Like the conceptual model for the small Boba Fett, indeed, like most conceptual models, it's known only through photographs, and it's quite possible it didn't survive. Assembled by Kenner's talented team of model makers, the model is easily discernible from its production counterpart by its shoulder armor, whereas the shoulder armor of the prototype clearly consists of separate pieces of plastic affixed to the figure. On the production figure, these elements are molded right into the plastic. It's a beautiful model, highly detailed and adequately representing the figure that was eventually produced. It was so nice that Kenner used it on several prototype store displays to represent the small action figure, a fact which suggests that the model for the large size figure predates its smaller counterpart. Because if the model for the small figure was available at the time those displays were created, why didn't they use that? Like the model for the small figure, the one for the large Boba Fett was repainted on at least one occasion. The photograph of the model featured on an internal Kenner spec sheet and later used for a catalog distributed by Irwin Toys shows it with a gray helmet and dark green chest armor. The other photos we have of it, in which the model is posed in a diorama fashioned after an ancient Greek temple, depict the figure with a helmet and chest armor colored similarly to the production figure, that is, in a mid-tone of green. In these photos, the helmet is also painted with the distinctive eye markings featured on early versions of Lucasfilm's Fett armor. Interestingly, the Greek-looking diorama was reused at the 1979 New York Toy Fair, but by that time the conceptual model was nowhere to be found, having been superseded by the production version of the large Boba Fett that we all know and love. The diorama and figure appeared in a part of the Toy Fair showroom in which a guy in a Boba Fett costume hobnobbed with attendees and signed autographs. To learn more about this, refer to the interview I did with Daniel Burgess on the previous episode. Okay, a little while ago I mentioned a Kenner spec sheet referencing the large-size Boba Fett. A spec sheet is basically a one-page document featuring a photo of a new product and text delineating its important selling features. You can see an entire book of these, dating to 1979, on the Star Wars Collector's Archive. They're interesting because many of them depict prototypes or refer to features that were cancelled prior to production. Let me read you the text of the spec sheet in question. Star Wars Boba Fett, Galactic Bounty Hunter. Large size action figure. A large 13-inch fully articulated replica of the newest Star Wars character, the ruthless intergalactic bounty hunter. Action features include a removable backpack with 3 safe spring-fired rockets, movable rangefinder to locate targets, swiveling jets, LED lights in chest plate, removable arm flamethrower, removable dart weapon, and electronic sound. Figure also has Wookiee scalps, a cape, knee darts, handgun, and holster. ages 4 and up. Exciting, right? If you know anything about the large size Fett, or even if you merely paid attention to the earlier portions of this discussion, you're somewhat surprised by the provided list of features. Of course, the Wookiee scalps, cape, gun, and rangefinder were all included on the production figure. But spring-fired rockets? Electronic sound? LED lights? Huh? On the opposite side of the ledger, the spec sheet makes no mention of the grappling hook or see-through viewport, two prominent features of the production toy. It's almost like this spec sheet describes a different product. And in a sense it does, because as initially envisioned, the large Boba Fett was a much more elaborate toy, a deluxe electronic one, and from a price point perspective probably more akin to the remote control R2-D2 than to your run-of-the-mill large-size action figure. Lest you make the mistake of thinking these features were mentioned once and then quickly dropped, take a look at the prototype box for the figure that's featured on the Star Wars Collector's Archive. Created after the spec sheet, the box nevertheless mentions a host of features, but they've changed a bit. It does mention the viewport, but it omits the electronic sounds. It also drops the number of spring-loaded missiles from 3 to 2. Lastly, it omits the knee darts, flamethrower, and dart weapon, which were probably removable plastic parts. In place of these is something called, rather awkwardly, a spring-launched arm dart weapon. Yup, it seems that at the time the prototype box was made, the toy was intended to feature two different projectiles, one launched from the backpack and another from the arm. It's surely for that reason that a large warning was printed above the character nameplate. It read, "Caution! Do not launch projectile toward face." This provides a hint as to why the spring-loaded features were abandoned. In 2 words, safety concerns, likely the same ones that affected the design of the 3 3/4 inch figure. Boy, that Battlestar Galactica incident sure did do a lot of damage. Anyway, if you look at the large-size Boba Fett as it was released, you can see a remnant of the arm dart feature in the small black cylindrical thing inserted into the figure's yellow wrist armament. As happened in the case of the small Boba Fett, the planned projectile was welded into place where it couldn't do any damage. The other cancelled features were likely nixed due to concerns related to cost. Naturally, LED lights and sounds would have required wiring, not to mention a battery. So in the interest of cheaping out, the lights were replaced with a rudimentary lensatic badge. Lensatic means it sort of changes color as light moves across it. Sad. As the grappling hook isn't mentioned on either the spec sheet or the prototype box, I'm assuming it was added later to atone for the loss of the backpack missiles. It's worth mentioning, however, that the model seems to include both a grappling hook and a missile, so it's possible that at one point early in development, both were considered as features. If you want to get a sense of how some of the abandoned features would have functioned, the Star Wars Collector's Archive is home to some Kenner file photographs showing hands manipulating a prototype of the large-size Boba Fett in ways suggesting action features. Based on these, the backpack and wrist projectiles would have been activated via buttons located near their housings, and the LED light, and possibly the sounds, would have been triggered by pushing a button located at the center of the figure's chest. The LED light, by the way, is clearly visible on the figure. It's worth pointing out here that the backpack projectile shown in these photos is red with a white tip. The tip is compact and rounded, not at all like the splayed grappling hook found on the production figure. Perhaps even more interesting is the fact that the photos reveal that the backpack included a fixture into which the second missile at one time planned for the toy could be affixed, meaning one missile was housed in the spring-loaded slot while the other was stored inertly right beside it. Actually, that's somewhat speculative. Some believe that the backpack was designed to feature 2 distinct spring-loaded ports, but I think that's unlikely. To me, the photo suggests that there were 2 backpack projectiles and only 1 port. The second missile was just a replacement, in case you lost one. The small Boba Fett, remember, was also advertised as coming with 2 missiles. Anyway, back to our regular programming. A 1979 catalog issued by the Canadian retailer Simpsons shows what appears to be a prototype of the original large-size Fett. Though it doesn't feature LED lights, it lacks the lensatic badge, as well as the welded-in-place wrist dart. So that's what could have been, the electronic, noise-making, light-emitting, double projectile-firing, large-size Boba Fett. Whew, that was a mouthful. Fortunately, the figure as actually released was pretty cool, even if you couldn't put your eye out with it. If you're looking to collect the figure, it was of course available in a Star Wars box, but in the States at least, the packaging was updated in 1980 to reflect the release of The Empire Strikes Back. In fact, Boba Fett and IG-88 were the only 2 figures from the line to be widely released in ESB packaging. packaging. As the ESB version of the large-size Fett was available for a very short time, it's substantially rarer than its Star Wars counterpart. Honestly, I feel like I see more boxed IG-88s than ESB Fetts. The figure was also sold in bilingual Canadian packaging. That's with the Star Wars logo. Rumor has it that some of these were even sold in the UK. As the Kenner Star Wars line progressed, it became less idiosyncratic. That's to say, it was purged of its weird or overly expensive items. And so things like the talking Imperial Troop Transporter, sonic-controlled Landspeeder, and remote-controlled R2-D2 can be taken as relics of a more daring era. Perhaps the electronic version of the large-size Boba Fett deserves to be considered among that group, as an artifact of 70s-era daringness. Still, if the figure as released wasn't as cool as it could have been, it was still pretty darn cool. Look, if I haven't convinced you that it's the best vintage Star Wars toy, hopefully I've at least persuaded you to take it into consideration. That's all I've got. See you next time, guys.
It's the new Boba Fett Star Wars large-size action figure from Kenner. Darth Vader sold separately.
Capture them alive! I'm the best bounty hunter in the whole galaxy. That's why you got the job.
Boba Fett has a see-through helmet with play rangefinder to locate your objective. You can move his legs, knees, arms, even wrists and elbows. His backpack unit is removable.
You have your mission. Good luck. I don't need luck. I'm the best.
New Boba Fett Star Wars large-size action figure from Kenner. Darth Vader sold separately.
Thanks for that, Ron. You've been fantastic this series. You've really helped flesh out a lot of our knowledge about these various bounty hunters, and no more so than Boba Fett. So, Pete, I'm going to come to you now. What else can you tell us about the large-size action figure?
Not much. Ron kind of kills it as ever. But yeah, no, there is a few bits. I think we've all got something to say about this one. It's such a great toy. I have to agree with that. In terms of who made them and what was available, obviously you got the US Kenner version of that, but there was also a Kenner Canada version which had the French Laguerre des Étoiles on the reverse flap, which looks pretty cool. On the front it looks pretty much identical, I think, and it's just on the flap you've got the French, the text there. We had it in the UK on Kenner. And we had Kenner Canada overstocks, I believe. So it was available through catalogues, and it was muchly available at retail. I remember this at retail back in the day. Seemed to be a lot of them out there. Seemed quite an easy pickup. Which also, if you think how many times you see sort of loose, incomplete Boba Fett dolls at toy fairs and boot fairs, there must have been 1,000 of these things available. But yeah, we had it on the Kenner boxes. But just imagine if they did this on a Palitoy box, how cool that would have been. But yeah, sadly not. We just got the import versions. It's also available on a Meccano box in France, and they had the Meccano logos, plus they had a sort of the French Empire Strikes Back logo, which you see on a few bits. It's on this. I think you get it stickered version on a Chewbacca and Vader. I think it's available on those dolls as well. So it's like a reworked Empire logo, which is a very cool piece indeed. And then Toll Toys. There was a Toll Toys one as well. So if you're a completist on your 12-inch figures, you've got a few tricky ones to go after. So I think that Toll Toys is a real tough piece.
What have we got on prices for them, Pete?
Yeah, they're all over the place. A lot haven't survived. There's some incredible condition ones out there, but obviously there's quite a range. But just going through them all, which I think just noting how handy it's been this year that Jeff Jacobs decided to sell his entire collection, so we get a real good insight into what absolute pristine versions are going for in the current market with the lack of interest in Star Wars, right? Let's see where we ended up with these. So selling in October this year, you've got the ESB box, which, as we now know, is the harder of the two to get. So an 85, AFA 85 near mint, none higher in the register. Apparently went for $17,700.
Wow.
Including the premiums. That's your sort of top of the range pristine 85 for an ESB. So that's phenomenal, right? Sort of $18,000 you're looking at for that. And what's also amazing in Hakes, I've relied on Hakes quite a lot. It's such a good site when you start digging into it. But that's the 27th item on the list on descending value on Hakes. 17 and a half, like 17,700. Yeah. Gives you an idea of how much Fett is out there and how much stuff's going for.
That one you was looking at the other day, Jess, sounds like a bit of a bargain.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the The pricey ones are the ESB, though, aren't they? I mean, they are the harder to find ones, it does appear.
Well, as you say that, if you want an AFA 85 Star Wars box, it's also selling in January 25 and also from Jeff Jacobs' collection. Bargain $11,000.
Wow,
So,
bargain.
Yeah, including premium. So, yeah, incredible. When you see these at shows and you see them in boxes, but generally the boxes are tatty.
And they're open. I think the fact they're sealed makes a big difference, doesn't it? But
yeah, and have a check if you sort of go on the Hague side of that. The Empire one, the 85, it's even got its own video. You can.
Oh, wow, okay. Is that special?
It's that level. It's pristine. It literally is box fresh, and as you say, sealed. It's just it's museum quality. It's a lovely piece. But then you got the Star Wars one going down to 11 grand, and then it's interesting going back to March 22. There was an AFA 80 which sold for 13,629. So they're coming down, Jez. You keep an eye on it. So that's dropped down 2 grand and dropped a grade as well.
But for us mere mortals, on the other end of the spectrum, Pete, what's a loose one running at?
A loose one, you're looking. Well, we see them. 2 have gone recently in Vectis. One went for 150, which we discussed, which was advertised as complete, but wasn't quite complete. But there was also one that went in October in a pretty messed up box, but the doll looked complete, and that went for 170. So. They're out there, but I think you're looking for a decent box and a decent complete toy. You're probably around the sort of 500 mark, I reckon. If you sort of and you can hold out. They're out there. They do come up. And as a loose toy, you can piece them together. The bits always come up. There's a few bits that are tricky. Wookiee scalps are tough to find, but
I saw it Sandown. There was a bear, not bear as in teddy bear, but a bear Boba Fett with no accessories at all. And the guy was like, it's 15 quid. I'm like, all right. He said, yeah, it did have the cape earlier on, but someone made me sell them the cape on its own. So I was like, okay. Didn't ask him what he'd sold the cape for. But yeah, so there's quite a few different parts which go with this. And you had said that Vectis one wasn't complete. So what was missing? Because it was the little jet boosters, wasn't it?
2 little boosters, is the little white boosters that they go at the bottom of the rocket pack. And the first loose one, I've upgraded like 3 times to where I am now. But the second one I had, one of those was missing, and then they're on a sort of ball joint, so you can't replace them because you can't get them out and they snap. It's worth having really, if you're going looking for a loose, it's really good having sort of really good photography and sort of knowing what you're looking for in the bits that are replaceable, like the gun, the Wookiee scalps. They can all be replaced, but there's certain bits that just can't. So
I've bought a couple over the years, and there's been to replace the parts, it's that old rule is that you're better off just buying a complete one and trying to put one together, because it's just fool's errand. You'll end up buying another half complete one to put a full one together and have to sell the spares. So why put yourself through the pain of it? I reckon you can get a complete one for couple of £100. If you hold out, you'll find one. There'll be one that pops up on Facebook at some point. I think I paid $200 for mine a few years ago. So
they're out there. And as you say, Jez, that guy at Sandown who had it was a sort of die-cast dealer. So he's probably just been buying, he just will be buying collections all the time, won't he? And that would have just turned up somewhere. Someone would have just had that. And it was such a popular toy back in the day. There's a lot out there.
Just talking about that figure being in the UK, though, it was also used in the Palatoy ad. I think Dave Trees pointed out a number of times. So in the advert for the 3 3/4 inch figure, they used the large size action figure painted to look like the Kenner figure for close-ups. I still haven't got round to doing that, Pete. I really want to get one. I would have bought that one for 15 quid and then Emma got a paintbrush out on it if I'd have seen it.
The Darth Vader advert.
That's the one. Yeah. I'll drop that in at some point in this episode, I'm sure. But yeah, that's definitely another claim to fame for the 12 inch. Talking about buying one, what do we all think of it? I think it's a superb example of a 12 inch doll, and they've done a great job on that one. They obviously went to great lengths to make it the Rolls Royce of 12 inch figures, but does it hold up? You guys think it's good? Or...
It is a classic. It's it's one of those when I got back in, like both times I've sort of got into collecting, it's been the absolute kind of number one thing I wanted to get and continue improve upon. Yeah, it's like you say, it's above and beyond all the other 12-inch figures. It just looks great. It's so iconic, and I've got so many memories of it as a kid. It's just a really cool toy.
Is that one you grew up with, Jez? Is that something you had as a child? I wasn't even aware of it.
I wasn't really tracking the 12-inch stuff as a kid. I just didn't see them. But it is something which I'm looking into. Jeff Jacobs, yeah, I think probably more Jeffrey Dahmer than Jeff Jacobs, really. I'm certainly not going to be able to get anything of that quality, but either loose or boxed. I think loose. I think it's such a cool piece. It needs to be on show that little bit more. And I guess the good thing about that one, you can do some comparisons with the IG-88, and I think we were even doing some of that at Sandown, weren't we? We were looking on Tracker to see what's coming up more often for sale, an ESB IG-88 or an ESB Fett. They were actually very similar, weren't they? But I do think when you don't have to worry about the sort of degradation of the plastic with the grenades and stuff like that, I think IG-88 is so cool because collectors know it's cool because it's a hard to find one. Whereas I think with the cape and the gun, which I think is brilliant, the whole Wookiee scalps thing, it was just so much thought put into it. I'm really, really grateful for what Ron's put together on this. However, I'm just slightly perturbed about the fact that he was massively dissing the Rebel transport. I won't have anyone diss the Rebel transport.
Yeah. Patience is obviously key in collecting, but in that instance, you'll get a good one.
So it wasn't something I was originally that bothered about when I started collecting, but once I got my hands on one, it really is the articulation on it and the accessories it comes with. And when you hear what Ron was talking about, all the extras they were going to do on top of that, it's like, Jesus, they were really put a lot into Boba Fett. Clearly saw this was going to be a winner.
Palitoy present Star Wars Toys. The princess has been captured. Our heroes are on their way. But who is this mysterious figure? Boba Fett! Will he save Princess Leia or side with Darth Vader? See comics and toy shops for details of Boba Fett's special offer now. He's waiting.
Slave One. It was Boba Fett shipping The Empire Strikes Back and was released by Kenner in 1981. We got it on a Palitoy box in 1982. The ship itself is a fantastic vehicle. I think it's quite simple in its design. I love the gyroscopic wings. When you lift it up and hold it into a kind of vertical position, the wings move around and you can pull the trigger in the back to hold them in position to get that, the Slave One almost like, was it like the Harrier jump jet kind of takeoff and then, position in the wings and then, blasting off into space, and was, you could run around your living room holding that handle, and it was, from a playability point of view, it's an excellent toy. And then you add in the fact that you get a hand solo in carbonite block is just the cherry on the cake. Price wise, you're looking at one of those, you're looking for just your standard loose in a nice shape. I reckon you could pick one up around between 60 and 80 quid they're going for on eBay at the moment. In terms of box variations, it obviously came in the Kenner boxes in 1981, and then in 1982 there was some variations with special offer stickers on. So there was a Sears exclusive in Canada, came with the Boba Fett figure, so you could actually get Boba Fett and Slave One in one box. There was also another special offer where it came with the backdrop. I don't know if you guys have seen that. There was a backdrop that came with originally came with Darth Vader's TIE fighter, and then they re-released that and added it in with Slave One.
I've never seen that before. No, until you shared the link to that. I've not seen one of those at all.
Did you know about the Darth Vader one?
I had seen it advertised on a box, but I hadn't actually seen what it looked like. And then having seen that image on Star Wars Collector's Archive, I just think, wow, it looks brilliant. I've seen a few people, like, I think you can get them. I've seen a few people have got their like loose collections displayed with the backdrops. I saw one on Facebook somewhere the other day, so they are out there. They must be massively rare though, because you don't see, well, certainly in the UK you don't see them pop up much at all. Yeah, really, really like those. So yeah, we had obviously Kenner got their releases in 1981, 1982, and then they moved to the Jedi boxes beyond that. In the UK, we got the first version of it in 1982, and that came with a Bounty Hunter capture log with the little symbols on the box. And they also had to return the Jedi Buy logo boxes in the subsequent years when they moved to the Jedi logos. There was a Kenner Canada version, and there was also a Bassa version as well. So if you're out in the Philippines, you could get your Slave One with a little B sticker on it. But I don't think
I couldn't find many other variations around different countries. I'm guessing because of the transition from Palitoy being the kind of the main kind of lead brand within the European circuit, that everyone just got the buy logo boxes, but I didn't see a Meccano box or anything like that. I think the other thing to note, that year 1982 when that came out, the other vehicles that Palitoy released were the AT-AT and Dagobah playset, both of which came without the Palitoy logo, but for some reason Boba Fett's Slave One did. I know we've probably covered that before, Pete, but that was it was funny that the Slave One did get the logo and the other two didn't.
Thank God. It's it's just lovely. I love that sort of Palitoy box, and I think as a toy, it's just perfect. The size is bang on, isn't it? It's correct, and it just works for that figure. And then you get the bonus of the carbonite as well. Yeah, no, the mysteries of what didn't get that Palitoy logo towards the end is it's great, head scratching to say the least.
In terms of pre-production for it, there's some great photos of the wood pattern on the Star Wars Collector's Archive. So when they would have, carved the figures from the wax and the acetate for the ships, they made them out of wood, and there's some great photos of what that wood pattern looked like on there, and also a conceptual model design as well. So before they moved into putting it into kind of any sort of wood pattern, they do it out of blow molded plastic and just put something together to give the guys an idea of what it was going to look like. It looks obviously very basic and rudimentary, but it gives you a good flavour of what it was going to be. And I think if you read some of the commentary on it, and I think, Jez, you've mentioned this before, I think at some point they were looking to put sound effects into Slave One as well.
Well, this was it. So when I was on Vintage Rebellion, and it was a long time ago that we were looking at Slave One and looking at this model, and when you're on the Star Wars Collector's Archive, it says here you see the back of the model, including the handle by which the toy was designed to be held, because that handle functioned from a playability point of view, which survived from initial concept through to production. That handle is brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
It says there appears to be a button of some kind located near the top of the handle. This may have been meant to control the wing movement. Either that or Kenner was considering building an electronic feature into the toy at this time. So they weren't sure. And this was on the Star Wars Collector's Archive. And I looked at the base of this, and I looked above the button and is to where the thumb was like. And I'm like, that's a speaker. That is the plastic molding which would house a speaker. There's nothing else like that. And when you actually look on the production figure, that is all filled in now. So that was a definite difference. And it was Chris Fawcett who we were interviewing at the time. And I just said to Chris, mate, that looks like a speaker. Have you not considered that? And then he went back off and spoke to one of his sort of Kenner sources. And the Kenner engineer was like, oh, yeah, that was. Sorry, hadn't we told you? And so it was definitely going to have sound effects like your Falcon, like your TIE Fighter. Why wouldn't it have had? Excuse the noise in the background, but I have mine here with the ratchet mechanism inside, with the Boba Fett's cockpit with his sort of gravity seat, and the way the wings are, the cannons on this, the slide down ramp. It, as you said, Peter, it's a well put together bit of kit, isn't it? It's really great. And shout out to the people who make all those plastic stands, be it Action Plastics or GW acrylic or Ian's displays and stuff, because there's some really, really great stands, and mine has stood up brilliantly now. Yeah, I think it's a wonderful toy. But yeah, check out that concept picture on the Star Wars Collector's Archive. That was definitely a speaker, mate.
Inside of it's a little bit of a void inside, isn't it? It looks, I think, unlike the Millennium Falcon, which it's not great for flying around the living room, but it's better as a play set on the floor, and you open it out. The Slave One is designed to pick up, run around a room and shoot at things. It's not the most best looking toy on the inside, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a fantastic bit of kit. So I think if you want to buy a box one, so I was looking on eBay at some of the completed ones that have finished recently, where everything's there, is anything between 70 quid to up to about 180, and the average was around 120. So there's definitely some bargains to be had with Slave One. I guess they produced a lot of these, as well as the full-size Slave One. We also got the die-cast version of it as well, which is great, because you've got a little version of Boba Fett inside there, and then you can pick those up for, well, depending on what condition you want them on, not very much at all. So you could probably pick up a bashed up one for a couple of quid and a nice one probably for about £20. So it's really affordable. Carded ones, I think you're looking at anything from, depending on the condition of the card back and the bubble, anything from 80 quid up to about £200 for a nice one. Beyond that for a really nice one, but they're pretty affordable as well, especially compared to carded Boba Fett figures. But if you want to say nice Boba Fett related, you probably wouldn't go far wrong with one of those. The other things on the archive ad, which was quite nice, there's a conceptual model for the Slave One on the micro collection. Have you boys seen this before? I didn't even know they did this until I started looking into it, but it looked like that was going to be like they did the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter, the Snow Speeder and the Millennium Falcon. They were going to do a micro collection of Slave One as well, which would have been nice.
Yeah, it's the first time I've seen that. That would have been fun, right?
Yeah, I do like that range. The micro collection. I'm looking at my micro collection X-Wing now, underneath my sort of full size X-Wing at 3 3/4 inch scale, not full size. That would be impressive. But it's a nice model, that. And so if they could have done that, these micro collection ones, the ones which break apart and then come together, the pull of a string or flick of switch. This again is one which would break apart. The wings break apart. Yeah, what a great concept, and it comes with a real cool looking little Boba Fett inside.
But I do like the little die cuts, but I haven't bought into any of these micro collection vehicles yet. And I know you're a big fan of the X-Wing, Jez, when you picked yours up a couple of Father's Froms ago. I think you got that, didn't you?
Yeah, I think they're great. I don't think they're not that expensive or something a little bit different. I think they complement things really nicely. So I've got in a small little shelf, I've got, as I said, the vehicle maintenance energizer has never looked so pimp being next to my X-Wing because it's actually a use for it. Because that's always the peg warmer, isn't it? The vehicle maintenance energizer. So I've got a little scene with the VME, the X-Wing, and underneath that I've got the micro collection X-Wing, and then a die-cast X-Wing. And I think actually it's all very nice, mate. I think your collection isn't complete unless you dip your toe in the micro collection. Get yourself a snow speeder because you love ESB.
It's got all of the kind of Bespin play sets, but I haven't ventured into vehicles yet, so maybe that'll be something else on my list for next year.
I've never owned anything from the micro collection.
Yeah, good fun. I've got one more item, and it's kind of a beyond the toys item for Slave One, but I thought I'd raise it here. I've seen this Falcon versus Slave One metal model from Japan. I've seen a few of these metal kits. I didn't realise they'd done a Slave One before. Have you guys come across any of these before?
Oh, mate. I'd seen the NPC model kit, but not that one, not with the Falcon.
No, I used to have the AT-AT Snowspeeder one. I mean, the box is tiny. I'm guessing it's the same sort of size. They're only like probably by about 6 or 7 inches by about 4 inches. It's quite a small box, and they've kind of got the little metal pieces in them. They go together quite nicely. It's not a model kit per se. You could probably just put together and put them on a windowsill somewhere. They probably didn't cost much at all when they were out originally. But yeah, there's a few of them knocking around. But I've never seen this Slave One versus Falcons. Well, that was a nice little surprise to throw in.
Yeah, nice artwork as well.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing about it, to be honest with you, mate. On from there, then, in terms of where we've seen Boba Fett and other vehicles and play sets on the packaging, I've pulled a few out. He's in the micro collection carbon freeze chamber, so there's a little teeny tiny Boba Fett in that set. The Power of the Force skiff has got Boba Fett on the box as well, and he's prominently featured on the one-man sail skiff as well as his own ship. It looks like he's got his own mini rig as well, if you're going to designate that one Boba Fett. We've spoken about it a number of times over the last few shows, but Darth Vader Star Destroyer Boba Fett obviously appears on the packaging for that. That was everything I could come up with.
It's surprising he's not on any playsets, isn't it?
Nothing that I could see. Yeah. I think like with the Cloud City playset, they were promoting the new figures. I think Ron brought that up a few weeks ago. So they were pushing Dengar at that time, and Boba Fett didn't get a look in.
Prepare to receive cargo.
Kenner's Slave One comes with frozen Han Solo.
Is Han Solo completely frozen stormtrooper? Yes, Boba Fett.
Action figures each sold separately.
Place them in the prisoner retention unit.
Slave One has a rear loading ramp.
Prepare for takeoff. Check.
Movable cannons and gravity-operated wings that trigger lock.
On to Jabba.
Slave One with frozen Han Solo from Kenner's Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back collection. Action figures each sold separately.
Before we move on to our next section, can I just ask you, just put you on the spot, that Attack of the Clones and what Disney have done for Slave One? Because I think it's one of the most positive things, which to come out. I think the Slave One is just been so well captured on TV and on film since 1980. I think, a highlight for me from Attack of the Clones with the sounds, as I said, seismic charges and Disney now refer to it as fire spray, but the way in which it was throwing down ammunition, the way in which it was throwing down like lasers at Obi-Wan Kenobi when it was chasing him, it was just brilliant. I think it was Craig who said, now I know why it's got the name fire spray. But I think also how it has been shown, in Mandalorian, in Book of Boba Fett, it adds to the coolness of the ship, I think.
Go back to that episode of the tragedy. I think it's the second or third last episode in season 2, when he comes and finds the Mandalorian and gets his armor back, and you see it fly in. You're like, straight away it's Boba Fett, don't you? Straight away it's him. And then when you see it in the episode after, when it docks with the Imperial shuttles, and they're all sitting in the back, and you're seeing the workings of it, because obviously I think they're sitting inside it, but obviously it's vertical. So you kind of get the sense of what that would be like, which you've never really had before. You obviously had Boba Fett and Jango in the cockpit in those scenes in Attack of the Clones, but to see what it's like sitting in the back section of the ship, I found quite interesting as well. And then when it goes up against the Sarlacc as well, as stupid as it is, it's great fun.
I got a lot of love for that. I just wanted to give it a shout out.
It hasn't been overused yet either, has it? I'm sure they'll get to overuse it, but it's been used fairly sparingly in the modern TV shows.
Gotta say, Boba, this is one beauty of a ship. Not crazy about the name, though.
So finally, when it comes down to the Beyond the Toys area, the Craig's Corner that we've been, really wanting to get focused in, and all those bits which are beyond the toys, beyond the figure, beyond the ship, beyond the 12-inch, what else did Lucas put Boba Fett on, right? And, we've had the bounty hunters, and it's been slim pickings in some areas. We've been scratching our heads. We've been looking at some metal boxes. Some top cards, brilliant. Okay, the occasional Dixie cup, amazing. Carry cases, a couple of areas, a couple of books. No mention of Boba Fett or any of the bounty hunters by name in the read-along stories or anything like that. We've seen some placemats. We've seen some frito-lays, some stickers. We haven't seen a great deal. However, the microphone has well and truly been dropped with Fett, because all you need to do is go onto the Star Wars Collector's Archive or any of the collecting books, or just go into Google, and this is the gift that keeps on giving. This is something where we could be recording for weeks on the Boba Fett stuff, which is available. So I think we're just going to maybe pick out our sort of top 3. It might go into 4. Who knows? We might get a bit carried away. But I think that's the idea, that we're just going to look at sort of a vast eclectic mix of Boba Fett merchandise, that if someone was a focus collector or just loved the colours, concept of the costume, what could they add to their collection? So what have you found?
Well, the first thing I'm going to pick out, it's Boba Fett ice cream wrapper. I've never seen the Boba Fett one for sale. I can't remember seeing it. I've got the Darth Vader one. But you've got this great pose of Boba Fett there. He's firing his flamethrower out of his wrist. He's got his gun at his other side. And it says, Boba Fett is the best bounty hunter in the galaxy and cares little for whom he works. As long as they pay him well, he wears a modified uniform of the Mandalore Super Commandos who were wiped out by the Jedi Knights in the Clone Wars. Even back then, that backstory was floating around. That's superb. Really like that. And that's something I'd quite like to add to my collection, Jess.
That's the Lion's Made, Lion's Made wrappers.
Yes, Lion's Made.
Yeah,
yes, you're quite right.
What have I got? I've got the sand person, I think, Tusken Raider. But they're great. I mean, you can generally pick those up for around about sort of £35-40, I think, in reasonable condition. But you're right, I've not seen a Fett one come up for a little while. So, that would be great. Peter, what about you?
Yeah, we very rarely talk about these, although you almost touched on it about 5 minutes ago, Jez, which is quite classic. The Airfix model, the Slave One model, is you do see them around, and the box is probably more, as for the Japanese one, it's more for the box art than the actual model. The box art is fantastic on that. It was originally released on MPC in 82, and then it switched to Airfix in 83, which I didn't know. I didn't know there was an MPC version. Probably quite tricky to get that first release. So you do see them around on that 83 Airfix box. And I also didn't know that Disney had re-released it in Starfighter packaging with the same original artwork. So yeah, they're quite a nice piece, and you can get them. They're not bad. You can get them for about 75 quid, 100 quid, like unsparked. So yeah, I was sort of look at those just because the artwork. I'm not sure I'm ever going to make it. I remember making some models in the 90s, and I was atrocious. So it'll be staying sealed if I get hold of one. But yeah, it's a nice piece.
Yeah, very nice. Talking about sort of, atrocious efforts at modelling, I'm just going to add to this the Craftmaster figurines. Now, you might have seen these. They're a bit more popular with Leah Hoth is quite a common one. And I've got one. I've got a Lucon Tauntaun. So these are, the licensee is Craftmaster. So these are the sort of figurines that you paint. So it comes with 4 little pots of paint and a paintbrush. And I know that if I tried to do one of these, it looked like I've had oven mitts on my hands. And and a paintbrush, because it would just look awful, right? Yeah, there's the Boba Fett one of those. It is pretty cool. So that comes in, nice Empire Strikes Back packaging. There's also a Yoda one, but yeah, they're pretty cool.
I've got the Tauntaun, and I've got the Han Solo as well. So there's a nice hand.
Right.
When we do Han Besbin, that'll be one we'll be able to talk about then. But yeah, the Fett one, I've never seen that for sale.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm going to go next. Something a little bit different as well. I'm going to go with the Vimura vinyl wallpaper. So I've recently picked up a roll of this, but yeah, it's got a nice Fett. You don't see a lot of Besbin use in the vintage line. It was all about Hoth, but it's nice. This wallpaper is very much themed around Hoth. It's very dark, very black. I imagine if you had a room full of it, it probably would be a little bit overwhelming, but you could have a single wall of it. I reckon if I could find enough job lots of this wallpaper, I could convince Emma to let me decorate a wall with it. But yeah, I really do like that. I've got a nice section of it now. I'm trying to get it framed. But yeah, Boba Fett's quite prominent on the layer, standing next to Vader in the carbon freeze chamber on Cloud City.
Is that the one that Fett is he's side on? It's not
Correct.
like standard profile where he's facing on. Yeah, it's quite, I say moody, but it's just a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah.
And with as you say, with the wonderful silhouettes, I think, of the Banner gas mine, of Bespin, it's really, really great. Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually some, I found some photos. There's about a dozen photos on it. There's various kids in the 80s with their Star Wars wallpaper, and there's at least 3 photos of people with just a full wall of this Star Wars wallpaper. It looks amazing. I've never seen these before, but yeah. Must have been great growing up having that. But yeah, brilliant.
Because not only would you have your room done, you'd have all your exercise books done. Did you ever do that at school, where you'd have your school books and people would come in and they'd have wallpaper or whatever on their school books? Yeah, God, those were the days.
These were the days.
What else have you got then, Pete?
I've got a quite random one. So back in, I think this was 2016. I stupidly in my notes, I haven't got the date, but I remember it was around the time of the sort of Palitoy employee sales through Vectis. Remember that, when all those Palitoy lots were found? So this was a random lot within that. So what it is, it's a load of salespersons, like salesman photography, and in it there's a Boba Fett doll kind of explanation. You got the big picture of it, and it shows you all different parts on it, which is really cool in itself. But then also there's a Toy Trader magazine advert which has got all the Boba Fett, what we know of the toy, but it's got it in a colour. It's in colour, which you never see, just for that advert. And the Stormtrooper's obviously covered up, but that lot in itself went for $2,000 back then, like 10 years ago.
Wow.
So there's loads of sort of random sort of Palitoy salesperson kit, but the Boba Fett sort of card standee on its own is pretty cool. But then you've got that advert behind it as well, so it's a bit not quite beyond the toys, but beyond the toys in a way. Yeah,
just collector stuff. Yeah, I like it. Nice.
But they're in Vectors. I just using the auction houses as a resource to go back and find stuff, and I've always been fascinated by that. And the fact it went for $2,000 then, God knows where that ended up. But you expect, like, Toy Trader was obviously a trade magazine, but I've tried to search that and never found it. So it's quite a rare little piece, and just to see that in colour, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, if I said to you Wilton Enterprises or Wilton from a licensee point of view, does that ring any bells? Any of you know what that would be? Because I'm sure you would have seen it before.
Not Wilton's, not.
So,
I'll chime in.
Now, Wilton's are still around now, right? They're on Amazon, all sorts of stuff, because they do bakeware and kitchenware and cake tins, etc., etc. Wilton, though, always from a licensee point of view, also did things like candles and various other things that you might have at birthday parties. So I've got some Wilton candles, like R2D2 ones and bits and pieces. but it's the Wilton Party Pan. Now, I've got a Darth Vader one, so you may well have seen this. Dan, I'm sure you would have seen this before.
Yes.
So yeah, so a big sort of aluminium or a big baking tray, and which is 3D modeled, and it's Wilson's Party Pan. My Darth Vader one is bake and decorate the Darth Vader cake. Star Wars characters as seen in Empire Strikes Back. This pan takes 2 layers of cake mix. And then it says easy to follow baking and decorating instructions under this label. And the design shown uses tubes 5 and 18 and Wilton paste food color in brown.
Nice.
That's for the Vader one. And so I've got the pan with the sort of inlay and the instructions. There's also C3PO and R2D2, but the Boba Fett one looks superb. And it looks really, really great. You have to check it out. And,
you need to bust that out and cook us all a cake.
Yeah, cake's fresh, mate. It's mint in oven. Yeah, so this is the Boba Fett one. It is great. I mean, these things from a reference point of view, 13 inches. They're reasonably sized. It's ideal sort of birthday cake stuff for someone. So in 1980, Wilton was granted the license from Lucasfilm. So they did a variety of stuff, as I said, chocolate molds and all sorts of stuff. But this pan is brilliant. Yeah, that's definitely my second one.
Look, I know I said about not calling out anything we've already discussed, but I can't not call out that Boba Fett candy head. It's a different series of candy heads to the Bosk. And there aren't many 3D dimensional things that we can call out other than like Craft Masters and stuff like that. But I think it's a worthy addition. It's a nice shade of green, pretty much like the head of the large size action figure. And if you can get your hands on one for a couple of quid, it's worth putting into your little display. But the artwork on the box for that, you've got Boba Fett in the lineup with a Stormtrooper. Then you've got Boba Fett, Chewbacca, C3PO, and a big Darth Vader head. But yeah, it looks they're great sets, and definitely worth picking up the display box if you can.
Yeah, always worth talking about the candy heads again. They're great.
And it's so difficult, isn't it? Because I'm like, I want to say this one. I want to say this. I want to say. I've got a list of 10 things here. But
we can give some honourable mentions if there's anything you're desperate for.
Peter, what have you got?
Yeah, my number 3 is you, and if we're using our slightly touched on before, but not really. I think, and when you did Bosk, you touched on the Australian cornflakes packets, and he was really sort of reptilian looking on there. But at Star Wars Celebration in LA, what year was that? A few years back, I think 23 or 22, they had the sort of box flat of the Boba Fett one, the mask, a stunning piece, and unlike the Bosk one, it actually does look like Boba Fett. So it's just in Australia, Kellogg's cornflakes promotion. You had Vader on the front of all of the boxes. There were 8 different boxes, and you had the masks on the back. Yeah, and that's a sort of box flat. And there's a link, if you look on the archive, they've got all of them. They do look stunning. I think they're probably incredibly difficult to get hold of, but they look pretty cool.
Nice one, mate. Nice. So, as you said, some honourable mentions. Dixie cups and Decker cups. There are loads. The Ben Cooper costumes, which is going to be really, really naff, but amazingly naff, aren't they? Beautifully naff. We haven't spoken about point of sale stuff or, stuff which you find in shops, like the Collector 21s, the Collector 30s, the 20, the bells, the long rectangular ones. All these things have got Fett, promoting Fett, pushing Fett. So to get anything like that would be great. But that these things are quite expensive. They're, it's quite difficult to get those in your collections. What I think does come up quite often, and it's quite easy to get in, the pillowcase, the Empire Strikes Back bib pillowcase / room concepts, I think it says on the packaging. But I've got one of these pillowcases. I think I got it for about £5. Yeah, it's just an Empire Strikes Back pillowcase. Now on one side, it's got the Empire Strikes Back logo, and then you've got C3PO and R2D2 with Han and Leia, Chewbacca, Falcon, and Luke on top of a Tauntaun. But on the other side, it's a Star Destroyer and then Vader and Fett, just looking brilliant. So that's quite good. You also made by Bib, the same licensee. You can get the little tea towel, Empire Strikes Back tea towel. They're pretty awesome. But lads, I have just sent you a link to the birthday card. Now, this is an absolutely gorgeous birthday card. Check out the colours on that then.
Yeah.
Because I love this birthday card, which is brought to you by Drawing Board. It's awesome die-cut Boba Fett art, which really, really pops. And inside it says, "May you get your share of bounty on your birthday." because some of those drawn board things, they had some really good sort of quotes or sayings within the birthday cards, and I think they're great. And these are the sort of things which you can pick up quite cheap and which don't seem to have so much of a Fett tax.
Yeah, I mean, all that party wear stuff. I think I used to have a bunch of that. I had the table cover serviettes. You could get. I imagine there's cups and plates and all sorts going on with that stuff. But yeah, it's brilliant. Boba Fett is looks great in there with all the different. Yeah, seeing all these colours shining through is great. You mentioned there obviously the tea towel and the pillowcase and stuff like that. There's so much good Empire Strikes Back stuff like that. I think there's face flannels and towels and all sorts going on. They all look superb. There's too many to mention. There's loads of different variations of the designs, but they look great.
And these are the licensed stuff, let alone the unlicensed. The bootlegs. Boba Fett bootlegs are awesome. I sent you an image earlier on of the Hungarian mini calendars, which is just
wonder what they were. I thought they were. Yeah.
Boba Fett and Nikto, of all people, on a Hungarian calendar. But, these are unlicensed. There's something for everyone. The Ritorno dello Jedi Italian stickers, which are the Italian versions of the Fun Product stickers. Mate, you could just go on and on and on. These, it's a great thing to get into.
Something I picked up a few months ago, which is the European Charity Premiere Programme for The Empire Strikes Back. And I've wanted one of these for years, and it's superb. But I suppose from a Boba Fett perspective, the standout is towards the end. I think it's kind of in the last couple of pages. Palatoy put an advert in. I think it's pretty unique to this publication. We've brought these characters down to size, and you've got this really stylized version of Boba Fett with Darth Vader and a stormtrooper standing either side of him, and it's got the Empire Strikes Back logo, Palatoy, and it says see the full Palatoy Star Wars range in toy shops now. But this is a fantastic program, really cool 70s advertising in there. There's some mad stuff in it. I've just posted the photo of the gold Darth Vader advert for the soundtrack as well. But yeah, that's something if you want to something a little bit different for your Fett collection, that's worth something that's worth picking up.
That hard to get hold of?
There was one, I think I picked mine up of eBay, but I think there was one that sold at Eubanks a couple of weeks ago, and that went for about £150. But yeah, they do crop up. But yeah, you're looking probably over £100 for one. So you got to be careful because sometimes people have cut those Boba Fett posters out.
Nice.
We all beyond the toys out on Fett.
I think so.
Keep going. Jesse's going to go on for weeks.
Mr. Feet, Mr. Bob A. Feet. Sure, whatever.
I think we've had a real good run at this since July. It seems like it's been going on forever, but I think we're going to look back and think we got through that pretty swiftly. But it's been great. I've learned so much about these characters that I didn't know. Loads of stuff. I mean, even from Ron alone, the things that we've picked up on that I probably heard in the past, but once you start recording these shows and really talking about this stuff, it tends to sink in a bit more. But the fact even like Bosk was, he was originally sculpted from the blue Snaggletooth sculpt. That I didn't know that, and the other figures had similar treatments as well. So that was something that I've absorbed now. The 12-inch IG-88 was the basis for the 3 3/4 inch one, and it wasn't a 3 3/4 inch that was sculpted. It was all based off of the 12-inch. That was a good takeaway. All the stuff we've kind of learned from Mark on variant villains, looking at the toxic limbs, Bosk. I mean, I knew those things existed, but I had no idea how much money they went for. That kind of blew me away. When it comes to Boba Fett and everything we've learned about that rocket firing Fett, it's really helped put that in perspective for me, and it makes sense of the whole development of that. It's pretty cool to be able to piece all these things together. But is there anything stand out for you guys? What you've picked up on recording these shows?
I think it's just doing the deep dive into each character, because you just realise how much, because you've got all this stuff and you collect it, but you collect it in quite a large amount, and you sort of the stuff you just don't necessarily go back and look at in detail. And just to sort of go back and just looking at the figures and just going into the history and looking at the sort of the marketing decisions and the release decisions, which I don't know, there's not many toy lines you could probably go back and do that. I guess Star Wars people have just gone into it in such fine detail and dug through catalogues and linked stuff and sort of made these connections, and it's just there to be taken on board, and it's incredible. And you just realise whichever direction you want to go in.
I'd never put together before that Han Besbin, Lobot, Ugnaught, Dengar, and what we've got, was it the Attack Commander and R2D2 sensor scope? And they were that wave of figures, but they weren't available that Christmas. They weren't available that Christmas 1980. The only way you could get them was through those play sets.
Yeah,
the Cloud
amazing.
City playset, and then obviously in Canada they just skin wrapped them, and the reason they skin wrapped them on those cards was because they hadn't produced the card art yet. So just piecing that little bit of information together was a bit of a light bulb moment for me. I probably kind of worked it out, but just when you've got it presented in front of you, you're like, oh, that makes sense now. I get that. But yeah, it's pretty cool. What about you, Jez? Anything you're going to take away from doing these shows?
Mate, as you said, it's been great because thanks ever so much, Dan, for getting back into this and doing this, because I know this year, we've had deep dives into various different things, and we've done the Palatoy things, and we've done the Andor stuff, and we've gone off and done Acolyte, and we've done various different bits and pieces, but at our heart, it has been vintage collecting. So for you to say, right, come on, let's get back on and do those old fossils, I think this has been a perfect way to do it. I've loved the deep dives, as Peter says. I'm massively grateful to the Variant Villains and to the guys from the Star Wars Collectors Archive, to Ron and Chris, who've given up their time and knowledge, and also Brian Rockfall as well, and learning all about the rocket fire and Fett, but from Chris's point of view of just actually saying what he thought about it, and about how the rockets just they weren't great. It wasn't doing this. It wasn't doing that. And actually turning it on its head for me sort of almost thinking, all right, so maybe it's so cool because that concept failed. Who knows? But it's been absolutely brilliant going along this journey with those people. So if I may, I just want people to note, because we talk about the Variant Villains and we talk about Star Wars Collectors Archives, go and check them out. It is variantvillain.com. And that is a huge resource for just really getting the detail on specifics on country of origins, or on all the details on all the different variants. So the most recent thing they've got is a Klaatu skirt guide, which they dropped last week. So these guys really, really know their stuff. There's some such deep dives on Vader, on all sorts of stuff. So that's the Variant Villains. But the other one, the sort of OG from our point of view, is quite clearly the SWCA.com, where if you just Googled Star Wars Collectors Archive, search, then you can do sort of deep dives and look at some of these things which we've mentioned, because what Gus Lopez has done on that site, but with all the sort of resident experts, that's our Bible. So that with the Variant Villains, we're set up, we're really, really well set up.
Just on that, while you're sort of over there, sort of in terms of resources, but yeah, no, Dan, absolutely amazing, and it's been such fun going into these in depth and digging stuff out. But it is just amazing the resources we've got, and just a shout out to all the authors and sort of digging out books and seeing what's there. I'm sure I haven't missed anyone, but if I have, I'm sorry. But yeah, Steve Sansweet, Matthias Rendell, Ben Sheehan, Gus Lopez, Duncan Jenkins, Stefan Forecourt, Javier Rio Lopez, and John Kellerman. You just time and time again, you just go back to those resources, find new stuff. So all of them, yeah, well worth picking up books as well.
Absolutely. I've got a lot of those books you've referred to, Pete, and they are superb. Even, I've got some of Kim Simmons stuff, and you start going through some of the man who shot Luke Skywalker for Empire, and you see some of the Boba Fett stuff in there, and it's amazing. So, yeah, well worth getting yourself some books. Maybe it's time for another book bump, Jez.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, that is it then for this show. But those old fossils will return in 2026, and we will be doing more figure-focused shows. And the plan for early part of the year is we are going to tackle the AT-AT and the AT-AT driver and General Veers, so the Imperial Commander and the AT-AT Commander. So we're going to be covering those in the early part of next year, and hopefully we'll be back with another episode of the Palatoy Guide, where Brian Hickey will be joining us for a review of his new book, Total Star Wars, and that's about to drop. For anyone who's backed that recently, they're about to start issuing those out, and there is also now links on their website. So if you want to get yourself a copy now and you missed out on the Kickstarter for that book, if you head over to totaltoybooks.com, you can now place an order for that book, and you will get yours sent to you once all of the backers have had theirs. So yeah, looking forward to talking about that in the new year as well. But if you're looking for more Generation Skywalker, we've loads for you to go back and listen to, including the recently released Star Wars A Read Along story.
I'm really pleased with how that went.
Yeah,
the feedback from that is we've had more feedback on that show than we've had for some of the other shows that I thought we'd have more feedback on, if that makes any sense. So yeah, fond memories from a UK point of view of listening to the old Rainbow read-along cassettes. Now I don't mean Rod, Jane and Freddie, I mean the licensee behind the Star Wars. Indeed. Yeah, not that. The Star Wars Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi read-along storybooks, which were under the Buena Vista license in America, Canada, France, Germany, Spain, all over the place. But we had in the UK. Did a great recording the other day where we went through all three, listening to them, looking at the various different pages throughout the books, listening to the voice actors, and it was just a great trip down memory lane for myself and for Dave Tree and for Dan, for you who had never listened to these before but had seen the books at various different sort of conventions and sort of for sale. It was just a good, fun, nostalgic sort of 1 hour show. And I think that show's about an hour and 10 minutes, but it was great. And Dave Tree's reaction was absolutely brilliant.
I had a proper old man moment with that show on the way back from Sandown. So I listened to that show with Harrison, and he sat there in the front seat. He's got his iPhone going and he's doing whatever he does on his iPhone. The Star Wars one's playing and he's kind of looking up every few seconds and kind of like raising an eyebrow. And I was saying, you see how lucky you are? See how lucky you are? In my day, this is all we had. So yeah,
all I had was a bit of string.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a good fun.
So John, Wendy Williams just puts on a comment. Jez, what an absolute treat I've had. I've never ever heard these before. This takes me right back to childhood. Thoroughly enjoyed listening to Penelope Keith narrate Snow White on the read-along books and cassettes I used to get. Much appreciated, mate. I totally love them. They work so well, even with the stories being dramatically cut down. It was indeed surprising that they left Leia, being Luke's sister, out, and I liked how they used different parts of the score in different parts of the story. Like Dan, I now want these in my collection. I'm already looking forward to you guys' production of Rogue One's read-along. But so some of the other feedback for this was brilliant, but it was really, really surprising. So you may have never listened to these books before. Each story is just 12 minutes. We've got all three on the podcast and our thoughts and immediate reactions. So yeah, it's an ideal one to listen to whilst on a dog walk or just out in the car. So yeah, check it out, the read-along stories.
Seen the values shooting up in... Have you seen the values shooting up?
Yeah, we all do that. Yeah.
And talking of values, I think Stuart's recently released a new modern way. So it's our 2025 edition of Gift What Gift, where we look at all of the Star Wars gifting ideas for the festive season. So if you're scratching your head and want to get a loved one for Christmas that's Star Wars related, or just fancy getting something for yourself, it's well worth a listen. And this month also marks the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens, and we'll be releasing 3 shows in December celebrating that. So you've not heard The Last of Us this year. But if there's still not enough for you, we have a back catalogue of over 150 shows, including more vintage collecting with the previous 29 episodes of Those Old Fossils, our collecting guides to Palatoy, plus modern collecting with The Modern Way, committees, interviews, movie commentaries, and our Look At series where we discuss Disney Plus shows, and we've got much, much more, so you should go and check us out. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for the latest Generation Skywalker show announcements and more. Just search Generation Skywalker to find us. And if you want to interact with hosts of Generation Skywalker and other listeners, why not join the We Are Generation Skywalker Facebook page? And if you've enjoyed that or any of our episodes, why not thank us with a 5-star review on your podcast listening player of choice? It really does help support the show and helps others to find us. And with that, we hope you've enjoyed this series and all of Those Old Fossils content we've put out this year. But for this year, it is a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from Jez.
He's no good to me, dead. Cheers, guys. See you next time.
It's a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's from Pete.
Happy Christmas, guys. Cheers.
And it's a bar humbug from me. We are Generation Skywalker. All errors, all passions, all Star Wars.